Here's to you, dear listeners, and welcome to Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance. What? Did we change the name? Yes, we sure did. Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance Tactical Podcast Action. I'm your host. I'm your host, Cole Duncan. And I definitely, oh my God, I definitely cannot do this alone. I am here with my very good friend, Chris Hampton. How are you, buddy?
Hey, pretty good. How's it going?
That's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's a little different around here, right?
Yeah, we moved the furniture around.
Yeah.
It's like we came into your house through whatever you were listening to us through. You can't listen to this on an iPhone, okay? What you got to do, put it on your TV, big TV, and sit your chair right in front of the TV and then angle the speakers at you. And then look into the black screen of the TV while you just hear the audio, because we don't fiddle with the video.
Obviously.
And that's how you experience Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance the correct way. Not on some fucking phone.
It's a really good sell.
Oh my God. You guys hear that?
Who was that? What was that noise?
What was that noise? I think that's the new host, Chris. Because we're not here. Well, we're here, but like no one else is here. But there is someone else here.
Who could it be now?
I think that might be our new host, Miss Tori Cortez. How are you, Tori?
Oh, Cole, Chris, it's so good to hear your voices. You've lost weight.
You can tell from my voice?
Well, the gym did open back up. So.
Nice.
And I've been eating better. So thanks. Yeah. I've been working on it. It's nice of you to notice.
You're doing good for yourself, buddy.
Oh, man, if only Snake had said that in response.
Well, the gym did open back up.
It was a different time. Men weren't in touch with themselves like they are now. Well, some men.
But
me.
It's Tori. How are you?
I'm doing so great, fellas. I am here. I'm ready to get down to brass tacks. And I'm down to talk about tactical podcast action is what I think the words are.
Yeah.
That's it is. I had to do that take a couple times, but it is. So for a reference for everyone who did not listen to our last episode, make sure you go do that. But this is Tori. Tori is a longtime listener. She's been a friend of the podcast for many years and is actually currently the moderator of our Discord. If you are interested in hopping in there, patreon.com/Metal Gear Mondays, $1 a month will give you some access. So hop in there, Bubby. But anyways, we couldn't think of a better person to come in here and replace the void left by our dearly departed boys any better than Tori.
Well, I don't know that I can completely fill that huge big dick energy void, but I'm gonna do my damnedest, you guys.
I'd like to point this out just because they're not on this episode and they can't stop me. The majority of the void was Sam. Zach, it was like a sliver. It was like a very, very small sliver.
Yeah.
Coming in hot with that.
Zach, I'm going to send you a bill because we're still cleaning up the mess you made around here.
It's messy in here. It's real messy in here. I mean, good God.
I can't even walk around in here
Rhodesian
barefoot.
Ranger panties still hanging up over there. I mean.
They're like solid, like Frisbees, though.
I know.
Yeah. I've never seen solid underwear before.
Like, how do you not wash? That's what I want to know.
It's a weird thing to come into,
do
guys.
Do narcs just not wash? It's a question.
From where does this filth come? Because it's not natural.
But with a new series, a new show, this is a true, redux, right, guys? We're doing something a little different.
It is. We're taking it back, going back to the formula.
Old school.
And we're going back
to the 1960s.
Way back.
With 1960s, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chris. I see you, and I'm like, I'm trying to anticipate you talking, and I'm like, do I say it, or is he pausing for dramatic effect?
Yeah, no, I am, but it's okay.
I've spoiled it. I've spoiled it. I'll get used to this. That's my bad.
It's all good, baby.
But as I have already ruined this, yes, we are talking Metal Gear Solid 3. That's where we're starting. We're going to start chronologically here.
Yeah, and you know what really troubled me? As I was reading through the notes that Tori put together, which these are immaculate notes.
Oh my God, they're Dr. Duncan level notes.
Oh, yeah, which you will be able to find them on the Patreon.
Yeah, so, consider. Huh?
Yeah. But I was reading through this and I was like, man, you know what would have been cool would be playing the game where the boss and Snake are developing CQC.
For real.
During that time frame.
Can we not get one of those?
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm one of those guys that's kind of fuck Solid Snake, I get it, he's cool, but also when I was like, oh, he's just a clone of this guy. Well, I want to know about this guy because his name is the boss,
Big Boss, even.
Big Boss, right?
Big Boss,
right? And then there's the boss, who is bigger than Big Boss.
Big Boss.
Is that how it works?
It doesn't sound like it should go that way, but it totally does, you guys. It totally does.
But it do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it do be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the boss, Tori, do you wanna talk about what we're gonna be talking about today?
Hell yeah, guys! If you hadn't guessed, by all of the dragged out setup that we've been giving, it's the boss. The Joy,
what?
The founder of the infamous Cobra unit, and just all around badass. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the boss's history and talk about just sort of how it had an impact on the events of Snake Eater, and we might even stumble into a little bit of fun trivia along the way and have some good pal around times around it, if you guys are into it.
Yeah, well, here's hoping.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend the next hour and a half of my life having a shitty time.
No.
That's fair, as you shouldn't.
Yeah, I'd say let's just jump into it, right?
Let's do it.
So let's talk a little bit about the boss. Born in 1922, right? And she was a daughter to a high-ranking member of the Wiseman's Committee, who were the kind of first precursors of the philosophers, who grew up to take care of the philosophers and instructed one of the philosophers' charm schools, which I found really interesting because... So
what are the charm schools? Is that some assassin academy? Are they doing some spy shit?
I mean, I don't know the specifics of what constitutes the charm schools and what their missions were, but I do know it was sort of the etiquette around... Okay, so what you have to know about the Wiseman's Committee is that it was basically a big boys club for people with money and people with power.
A good old boys club for people with money. Okay, so it was
you're big. I got a small dick. I got to compensate with money and power, sort of club.
I do declare.
I'm just playing, sort of, maybe.
Yes.
Kinda.
Basically, the boss grew up in this atmosphere. And her dad actually ended up getting her the behind-the-scenes knowledge, not necessarily with the expressed consent of the Wiseman's Committee. So he was kind of grooming her from the start, and that's how she thus ended up coming to teach charm schools, which was basically just etiquette for being associated.
To be clear, not grooming in a Drake sense, but...
Very, very relevant, and I'm so glad you brought that up to distinguish.
So with the charm schools, from a little bit from what I've read, like you were saying, it's basically like an etiquette school, correct?
Correct.
From a little bit of digging, I've found that some of these things, and I think it was the case for the boss, that some of these quote unquote charm schools were more so we're going to train basically female sleeper agents, spies.
Are these child soldiers? Is that what's happening here, Cole?
It's basically grooming children to be espionage agents. Yes.
Kojima willingly talk about child soldiers, would he?
That's too political.
No. But that's from what I've seen, just kind of doing a cursory look around, which unfortunately I can see can kind of match the time where these things occurred, or where these establishments were somewhat prevalent.
Right. So all of this research was actually pretty fun for me because I was never really a history buff, but I've learned a whole lot from just doing this deep dive on it. And as you guys know, this formed after World War I, the Weizmann's Committee, and it's what eventually led to the philosophers. And like I said earlier, philosophers / Weizmann's Committee was just a group of dudes with wealth and power. And specifically between the United States, Russia, and China, as we all know from playing through Metal Gear Solid 3.
Right.
So, like I said earlier, her father had a lot to do with bringing her into the background knowledge of the Weizmann's Committee / the philosophers. And he ended up telling her a little bit more than they were comfortable with, which ultimately cost him his life, as it turns out.
So this was a new thing that I didn't pick up on. It's been so long since I played Metal Gear Solid 3. I had no idea about any of that.
Right, neither had I, actually. There was a lot. For someone claiming to love the boss as much as I do, a lot of this came as a surprise to me, actually.
Well, I mean, you're doing the research to really, dig deep. So I think that's the ultimate form of love right there. You're really diving in here.
Hey, fair enough. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically the philosophers were the remnants of the Weizmann's Committee, the next generation. And as they were forming, the ties between the United States, Russia, and China were kind of tumultuous, as with any alliance that is long lasting.
That time period was really tumultuous in general. We're talking about the 1920s through the 1930s. We have kind of a rise in excess in, American exceptionalism and its rise as a superpower.
Right.
And then the 1930s, which was not fun for literally anybody at all in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the 30s kind of sucked.
A little bit.
But we had FDR. That was great. He was a great guy. Well,
I love FDR.
Some things. We won't go there. Anyway.
You're now tuned into the history podcast with a touch of Metal Gear.
Well, just hold all this is out of the way here. This is just like Kojima writing fan fiction about the Cold War.
Exactly, man. So that's the conclusion I came to as I was learning about all of this. Mind you, I have taken history courses, sort of, showed up for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm relearning about a lot of this stuff. Like I have, for instance, here in my notes, I'm now learning what entails a Cold War for the first time, and why it's called a Cold War versus a hot war, which I've literally never heard anyone say out loud.
Do you understand the joke with in Peace Walker with the villain Hot Coldman?
Well, I do now. Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something else too that I'll touch on later when we get closer to it, but I haven't played through all of Peace Walker yet, so a lot of these I'm going to be just freshly understanding some things for the first time, I think.
Yeah. I honestly feel like this is when Kojima was like at his most creative with the Metal Gear series. Like he was just having fun with it because it's real kitschy and super campy.
Exactly.
Sure.
You've got a whole breadth of history to just revise for your own game, just to tweak a little bit.
What I loved about this was I could see, just through reading through these Wikipedia articles, I could see where he would just kind of like divert the story a little bit and make it more convenient for his, his will. And I mean, this is basically just him rewriting what happened. And I think it's creative, and I think that adds a lot to the game for me personally.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, like, on those notes, like, I'm surprised that, because I mean, at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3, like you see like the full timeline from, like the Wiseman's Committee all the way to, at that point, the present in the 60s. I'm honestly surprised like Kojima didn't just go in there and say like, oh yeah, and Gavrilo Princip was actually just a pawn for the Wiseman's Committee, and he actually was supposed to go kill Archduke Franz Ferdinand and start World War One, so all of this could start. Like, I mean, I'm honestly surprised it didn't go that deep.
I'm sure there's some version of this that totally did, though.
There's fanfic out there, I'm sure. Oh. If there isn't, someone in this community, get on it.
Absolutely, there has to be fan fiction out there.
And send it to us. Are we going to do another fan fiction episode, you guys?
I mean, I think if it's on air now, I think we've got to.
Okay, cool. This is me saying we're doing another fanfic episode, you guys, in the future sometime.
I've never committed that sin in my life, but I guess I'll do anything for money.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Back to this fun tale unweaving.
Sure. Boss's father is killed by the philosophers. Is that what you were saying?
That's right. So basically, around all of this time, after the boss's father was assassinated essentially by the Wiseman's Committee, the descendants are kind of forming the philosophers. Now, at this time, the Cold War is happening. And again, that's my note here. I'm learning what a Cold War means, which essentially it's a war that doesn't involve like nuclear weapons and threat of actual firepower raining down upon you.
Right. It's a definite threat. It's just a lot of threats. There's no one actually pulling the trigger on anyone.
Right. So it's a lot of behind the scenes tactical podcast espionage. Just kidding.
There it is.
Real espionage. So kind of the idea behind the United States and Russia and China coming together to form this philosophers group is a little bit derailed by the fact that all of those countries are also a little bit at war with each other. And specifically, obviously, Russia and United States, right?
Sure.
So, jumping ahead a little bit, and by the way, the end of the, as I've written it, OG crew, the Wiseman's Committee, the last of that outfit, I guess, died somewhere in the early 1930s.
They were missing a whole lot.
True. So just wanted to catch us up on the timeline because the next point in 1942 is when the boss formed the Cobra unit. Which
is sick. I'm going to hop in just real quick because from what I'm seeing, it kind of seems like, and this kind of goes back to that kind of Kojima revisionist history, that, this power struggle between the US, the Soviets, and the Chinese had been going on for longer than, say, the actual Cold War. We have this Wiseman's Committee, who is the precursors to the philosophers, who are kind of constantly having this power struggle, which in it of itself is a kind of Cold War, maybe not on a global scale, but their influence does, influence the rest of the world.
Right.
So there is this kind of private Cold War going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and that's where I think this whole model of writing stories works for Kojima, because he does borrow a hell of a lot, and borrowing might even be a light word for it. He just fucking rips stories and storylines, right? But he has this fun way of weaving his own little story within them, and it doesn't, it doesn't bother me so much that the core of it is founded in other sources, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I picture Kojima, when he's watching movies or source material where some of the stuff is kind of lifted from. Do you know that part in the Virtuous mission where Snake sees the beehive? If you check the chat, I just sent the gif of it.
Man, I was gonna interrupt Cole a minute ago, but I didn't want to be a dick about it. Chris, that was hilarious.
That's like Kojima looking at the movies, and then he's like, "That's the idea."
So
Smile, yes.
Right, it's all in the adorable little fucking grin he has on his face when he pulls the binoculars down, just like,
yeah,
honey.
oh yeah. Kojima's he's a sneaky guy for sure, but I think like the way he does it is definitely like a tribute. You know, it doesn't malign the source material at all. I think it's enhanced in accompaniment. Whoa,
was that Klingon?
I think you're right in that he really does kind of have this kind of like wry little grin as source material. I mean, the boss is literally born the same year that the Soviet Union is formed.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
I didn't even pick up on that. See, this is where my total lack of history retention is going to fuck me over a little bit. I'm so glad you're here, Cole.
Hey, I mean, you got Chris here too. I mean,
and Chris,
he also studied.
I can't forget Chris. I'm sorry.
Mean, don't look to me. I'm just here for I'm here for the drinks.
But like you're saying, in 1942, she does found the Cobra unit, which is the big chonkin' boys that we see in Metal Gear Solid 3. That's her own personal unit.
That name suits you. Much like my own Cobra unit.
Yep, there it is. Long monologue about Cobra units. So yeah, let's see. I'm trying to decide whether I want to jump right into 1943. Because this whole thing, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not 100% clear on how one thing moves to another, so I'm just gonna read it exactly as I've got it here.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Where are we getting this information from?
Right? So, yeah, that's always a great question.
Let's establish that real quick.
Sure.
This is the convergence of, like, 3 different Wikipedia articles. And so I tried to cobble them together as much as I could and make sense of what one was saying versus another. So this is the result of that, and please feel free to jump in there if something does seem off.
Yeah, I mean, we have to like kind of just piecemeal the information from like some of this game, some of that game, like an item description in this other game, and like, you know,
right.
There's no like cohesive history.
Because there's
you know, Konami, if you want to make a quick buck, just put one out.
There you go. Yes, there's even a mention of a character from another game in the series, which we'll get to a little down the line. But yeah, like I said, I cobbled them together as best as I could. And anybody that's listening, if you've got a correction for me, I'll gladly accept it. It's just for the sake of understanding this storyline and timeline better, because it's a lot.
Sure.
So, 1943, the boss is ordered to assassinate a scientist that had a hand in the Manhattan Project because there was suspicion that he was a Nazi spy. So, just before she was sent on this mission, she found out she was pregnant. And for those of you who are familiar with the events of Metal Gear Solid 3, you'll know, spoiler, that it's by the Sorrow. Chris, I just love your note here so much that I want to give you an opportunity to jump in here if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I think the boss likes the sad boys.
Yeah, the Sorrow is like King Sad Boy.
He is.
The man cries blood. I mean, he is sad boy.
Let me put it to you this way. If we're going off of like Big Boss is the student of the boss, in Metal Gear Solid 5, you can play New Order in your helicopter. And like, you kind of get your music taste from your parents. So I'm just putting it out here that the boss was into some goth, I think.
I mean, and let's be real here. I mean, like, Ocelot never complains about the music. Oh, is that another spoiler? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Like, she must have been kind of depressing to be around, I guess. Or maybe
she must have been.
Well, no, she was the Joy, right? So
yeah, I mean, don't hate on the Joy.
I'm trying to like imagine what this dynamic must have been like, because
she needs that sad energy in her life because she's just spewing with joy. I mean, that monotone. Remember your loyalty to the mission, Jack. Definitely spewed the joy all over the place.
Oh my God.
Like she totally needed a little bit of depression on her side, right?
That whole ass monologue of like, the enemy of today is not the enemy of tomorrow, Jack. Listen to me. The side that you are on right now will not be the side that you're on tomorrow. I guys have that fucking memorized. I played through Virtuous Mission, right? We're getting ready to go into the gameplay, right? And our first episode is going to be in Virtuous Mission. And I've played through that part of the game, I think, like a dozen times in the past week or so on all the different difficulty settings. And it's just like too much for me to listen to the dialogue again.
Right. Well, I was going to say, again, heavy spoilers here for anybody who hasn't heard the last 4 years of episodes, which would be incredible.
Or
if you
for
haven't,
however long these games have been out.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Does anybody else find it not at all surprising that the boss ends up in an AI pod? Like, the monotonous, like, remember your loyalty to the mission. And just that repetition over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not surprised.
I'm not
it's
surprised
just dawning
at all.
on me like, wow, that really worked out for her, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway. No,
yes, she
it didn't.
does like sad boys.
It didn't really. That was a super sad thing, but that's me just trying to glance past that. So back to the timeline, why don't we?
Yeah.
So this is where I have a bit of a problem with what's on Wikipedia, and you know, let me know if this is getting too political or whatever. But so she's set out for this mission. She's just found out that she's pregnant, and Wikipedia says that she went ahead and went on the mission, but she blew her cover because she was quote unquote distracted by her pregnancy.
Yeah, how do you get distracted by being pregnant?
I'm not sure.
Listen, you guys, I get it. Women are hysterical. All we know how to do is emote all over the place and get
Tori,
distracted by things like babies.
Have you ever been on that subreddit, Men Writing Women?
Oh no, but it sounds like a real treat.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. But I just imagine like Kojima thinking of this in his head, or like whoever the fuck wrote that. I don't know. But
right?
that, like,
I mean,
she's like sneaking and like behind some crate, like a Metal Gear Solid scenario, you know. And then all of a sudden she's like,
she's inside a cardboard box.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, I forgot, I'm pregnant."
Right? Like
the guard's like, "Huh? What was that noise?
What was that noise?"
Blows her cover.
Oh
Mission's
my God.
over.
Yeah, so I don't know what the fuck that
assassinate
means.
the Nazi.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever, if anybody is listening that happened to write that Wikipedia page, if you want to let me know what the fuck you meant by that, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Color it in for us.
Yeah, please. So she's on the mission. Her cover is blown. Naturally, she gets shot at. Apparently, she avoided a bullet that grazed her on, again, Wikipedia's words, on the side of her brain, putting her in a coma for 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, it is theorized by who? I don't know. The community, that her body willed her to live for her child.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was theorized by the world at large. I don't know. I don't know who's theorizing this, but
it was probably something that the person who wrote this narrative was like, you know,
this is poetic. Oh my God.
It's theorized that her body willed her to live for her child.
Which is a nice
What does
notion.
that sentence even mean?
It's much more likely that she was like, fuck, I'm gonna die.
But her body was like, no, you're not gonna die.
You
I
have
will you to live
You've got a baby.
because you have a child.
We have to birth this child
Yeah.
soldier, or else the world will end.
Yeah, which, spoiler alert, it seems like she does not give a fuck about her actual child later on in the series.
Well, so that's something I definitely want to touch on a little bit later. There's time for that later, but remind me, we got to talk about her relationship with the child. I mean, we've already spoiled so much. We know
Baby Yoda.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Is
Yeah,
that Baby Yoda? Please
this
say Baby Yoda.
This would be much, much more fun if we refer to Ocelot as Baby Yoda, so let's just keep doing that.
I'm just picturing that duel at the end.
But it's Baby Yoda.
And then you're in the White House and you press the left bumper, but it's Baby Yoda.
He's just pointing at you.
Finger guns.
Oh, man.
What's even better about that is imagine when you first see him and it's just, but instead of Ocelot, it's Baby Yoda and his little hovercraft. And he just kind of like looks up at the sky and does the whole like thing that he does.
Any of you crafty listeners out there, please make this video happen.
But she regrets failing that mission.
So
correct?
yeah, I mean, okay, so I jumped forward a little bit in the notes, obviously. She failed the mission, guys. She didn't get that Nazi boy, that alleged Nazi boy.
Right.
So she's living with this regret about not having succeeded in her mission, even though the suspicions of this scientist being a Nazi spy was totally brought on by the Soviet sector, I guess, of the philosophers feeding misinformation to sabotage the Manhattan Project, or so it's told.
Right.
So is there like infighting in the philosophers? Is that what's happening?
There has to be. They've got apparently 3 different agents in the field during Metal Gear Solid 3, with China, with Eva, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Ocelot with Russia, maybe. Is he? We don't know. And then obviously Snake for America. So you have 3. There obviously, there is definitely infighting to try and get the legacy.
Right, and how could there not be? You are a part of this group, sure, that when you're together is united on this wonderful principle of being rich and powerful, but when your countries are at war with each other, it's which came first, the chicken or the egg. I think about this a lot and wonder which one of those did come first in Kojima's mind.
Well, maybe if we could illuminate it with some actual history, there's like in World War I, for the first time, Europeans are fighting each other. And like, Cole, you would remember this from your father's history course. That like there was this like crisis of, I don't know what you would call it, like conscience, because these were like neighbors and like family members that they were fighting against, and like
sure. I mean, the whole thing with World War I though was that the Europeans, to our European listeners, this is no surprise, for the better part of a lot of history were fighting each other for land and influence and whatnot. But the First World War was just brought on by a ton of under the table deals, that created the powder keg that one assassination sparked. A lot of the kind of underlaying themes of Metal Gear kind of follow that, with the shadowy cabal of very influential people and very powerful people also making under the table deals to try and backstab each other. Track's pretty heavy. We've got these guys trying to sabotage the Manhattan Project, which, if you aren't aware, the Manhattan Project was the American endeavor to create the first nuclear bomb.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, it happened right here in Tennessee. Oak Ridge.
Yeah,
No
parts
shit.
of it did, for sure.
Yep.
Wow, I'm such a noob at history. Okay, I'm going to learn a lot, you guys. I'm so excited.
But yeah, all these themes of backdoor dealings and underhandedness and going behind your supposed allies' backs aren't new themes in the grand scheme of things, you know?
Right.
That's for damn sure. I'll tell you that.
Right. And it's a bummer, too, that, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's not a bummer. Maybe it just is what it is.
Well, look at our own times with like the misinformation in Russia and the media and all that stuff. Like,
sure,
shit's chaotic.
And which is, I think, a reason I'm so excited to be covering this right now, because every piece of media I'm turning to lately has something to do with what's happening right now. And it keeps pointing me back to this, which is, I don't know, maybe it's some fresh hell, or maybe it's good that, maybe it's a better point of view that it's good I have some things to turn to, book-wise, game-wise.
I think, fresh hell is European extreme.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, the boss was living with some regret about the fact that she couldn't carry out her mission, despite the fact that she was fed misinformation from the Soviet sector. And so much to the point that she felt like it was directly her responsibility that the Cold War ended up breaking out. And I put this down for a reason, because I think it is important to track what her motivations are for carrying out her final mission and the emotions that are involved here. So, jumping forward a little bit, in 1944, she had led her Cobra unit to victory at the Battle of Normandy. And Cole, I'm definitely going to have you jump in here too.
Yeah, sure.
For sure. To give us a little background on that.
Yeah, I mean, Battle of Normandy, that's D-Day. That is the Allied invasion of France. So literally, the boss is still pregnant. Going to France, going to Juno Beach, goes into labor on D-Day.
Yeah.
On the beach. Oh God. Oh, I said the phrase.
What?
I said on the beach.
Yep.
I did. I tried.
Our story begins.
Don't you dare! Don't you fucking dare!
Nobody even led you there.
Sam.
Stop! We're not there. We're not talking about that fucking game. I'm gonna strike that from the record right now. Absolutely not.
Just like Mario and Princess Peach.
God damn it! Oh, she goes into labor after being shot in the gut this time on the beaches of Normandy during the Allied invasion.
Right, so this absolute warrior, just 1 year prior, right? 1 year prior? Yes. Yep. She was on a mission where she avoided getting assassinated fully with a bullet, but it grazes her brain, right? Putting her in a coma. The very next mission she goes on, it sounds like,
is storming the beachhead.
And she takes a bullet to the gut. And not only does she take a bullet to the gut, but she gives birth right then and there.
Yeah.
You guys, can we just take a moment to appreciate what kind of, talk about fresh hell. Good God, man.
Absolutely fresh hell. I mean, I assume, I don't know how, it's a video game, Cole. Maybe have some, room for some fudging here, but it's an amphibious landing. She's storming a beach with the Cobra unit. She's running up against pillboxes full of German machine gunners. Takes a bullet in the stomach with her child in there. The trauma induces labor.
Yeah.
And she gives birth on the beach of Normandy. That's insane.
Yeah, firstly, how lucky are she and her baby to have survived that at all?
Absolutely. There is a not even a million chance for that.
Right?
That's insane.
So that's some shit. And if that wasn't enough, naturally, soon after this mission, the philosophers take her baby away from her, which, listen, I'm not a mother by natural birth. I'm a stepmom, so, there's something there, but I cannot fathom what it would be like to give birth on the battlefield to a child that you had with the man you were in love with, and spoiler, eventually have to assassinate, and then lose that baby. Not even, I don't know how long it was after, actually. I don't have a timeline there.
It must have been very soon after.
Yeah,
I mean,
too soon, no matter what the timeline is.
I mean, just because I don't believe like Ocelot knew.
See, that's okay. So that's what I want to get into later. So let's table that for a minute, because I have a whole section where I want to talk about. Yeah, let's come back to that.
Of course, yeah. So we're moving through that. So D-Day happens in 1944. We're 1 year away from the Second World War ending, with the final really 44. That's VE Day happens in 44.
Right.
So Victory in Europe happens in 44. 45 is VJ Day. Victory in Japan. War is officially over.
Right.
Then, so we're moving 3 years into the future. So post-war, I assume America.
Yes, because the boss is a agent of the Philosopher's American sector. Right? So everything that she's doing is for America.
Because she's from Idaho, I believe. Is that correct?
Oh no! See, that's something that I didn't dig into.
I know that the boss is American born.
Okay.
Yep. I know for a fact that she is American born. I will fact check myself real quick. You keep talking.
Yeah, no, she's American.
Yeah, everything I've read suggests that. So yeah, like Cole is saying, we are 3 years after the Battle of Normandy. We're a couple years after the end of the war. And the boss is now disbanding the Cobra unit due to tensions between each sector of the Philosophers. So it's around this time, too, that she meets up and serves under the SAS, which I'm going to have help with probably Cole and Chris about this one. I'm not 100% sure what that is.
That's the British Special Forces.
Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. That's when she meets Major Zero, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's correct.
So it's also this time that she encounters Snake for the first time. And this is during this time, for those of you who didn't really pay too close attention to the codec conversations between Snake and the boss, they developed CQC together while they were working. So,
what's CQC mean, Tori?
CQC, Snake. Try and remember the basics of close quarters combat.
Oh, God, you're so good at that.
Thank you. I've been working on it, I'm not going to lie.
She is American. I don't know where I got Idaho from, but she is American. It is confirmed. Boss is American. Sorry.
Check.
Please tell us about CQC.
So, close quarters combat, right? It's in the game. We can talk a little bit more about this later, and I'm sure a lot during this whole series, but it feels pretty limited in this game, and I won't go too much into that now, but it's basically any maneuver that can happen in close quarters. So nothing at range. It's when you've got your knife and or pistol in hand, and you would favor the pistol or your own hands over the gun, right?
Right.
So there's takedowns, there's holding your...
Yeah. I did a little look into CQC because I am that much of a nerd.
Hell yeah.
Recently. CQC obviously is not a real martial art, believe it or not. But from what a lot of people who are much more experienced with martial arts have said online is that it is much more akin to like an MMA, mixed martial art. A lot of judo.
Okay.
You see a lot of that with Snake, stepping in and grabbing his opponent by their shirt and, tripping. A lot of throws
Hell yeah.
Are based off of old judo techniques. A little bit of jujitsu where with the striking is concerned with, these kind of wide palm smacks to the side of the head to kind of, disorientate. There's some taekwondo in there as well. There is just a big mix of stuff going there. There's a little bit of Muay Thai where, we're dealing with, Snake kicking the leg out from underneath his opponent. So it's a big blend of different martial arts, which I think reflects the boss's actual experience being this kind of world-renowned soldier.
Yeah, definitely. Which is important because, as many of you who've already played the game know, and as we'll discover here pretty shortly, the boss fucking owns at CQC.
She really kicks ass.
Like, for someone who had a hand in developing this style of, I don't know, tactical action, Snake sucks at it compared to the boss. Like, holy shit.
Oh, Lord, yeah. I mean, he's like a first grader who's just getting into, like, his first karate class going up against, I don't know, like Anderson Silva. I mean, it's bad.
Right, and to some extent I understand that, and it makes sense because in more ways than one, Snake is a protege of the boss. He's not quite at her level, but goddamn, for someone who helped her develop, you'd think he'd be just a little bit better at it.
I feel like he helped develop it in the way that, like, she kind of already had it already figured out for the most part.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Snake was kind of the training tool that she
Are you
used.
just suggesting that he was a punching bag while she was figuring out all these combat moves?
I'm definitely suggesting that.
Oh, my God.
For sure. I mean, I'm not saying that Big Boss isn't a, battle-hardened soldier who can hold his own, but
sure.
Jesus Christ. I mean, she absolutely just wipes the floor with him every single time.
Every single time, you guys.
And also, she has experience on him. At least, 20 years worth of experience just beating the hell out of people.
Yeah.
I think, where she saw, because, Snake is a Green Beret. They go through extensive combat training, hand-to-hand combat training. She's the mother of the special forces, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Snake was a punching bag, for sure.
Right, exactly. And he never stops being her punching bag, basically, until the end of the game.
I was like, well, I mean...
Yeah.
Big Boss really just gets the shit kicked out of him a lot, being honest.
He does.
I mean, if I'm Big Boss, which I am in the game.
You are.
Yeah, Big Boss is getting the shit kicked out of him all the time.
Yeah.
Again, this is probably something we'll cover when we play the games, but it just tickles me to no end. It amuses me, but it also frustrates me as the player. Like, I think that's a wonderful feature of the game because, like, dude, you're not going to fucking juke on your mentor. She's going to be better than you.
No, she's going to slam dunk on you 90% of the time.
For real. So, yes. Now, that being said, I was always curious about this, like I started this out with. How could they have developed this together if Snake sucks at it so majorly throughout this game? So I was just curious about how this came together, and this is really neither here nor there, but like Cole said, Snake, Jack / John, however you want to refer to him, fought in the Korean War, apparently, as a U.S. soldier, helping to drive the invading North Koreans out of South Korea. And again, if this is factual, well, as factual as game lore can be.
As a game can be.
Right. If this is legit and not just some bullshit somebody put on Wikipedia, I just found that really interesting because every time I've ever played this game, including the very first time I played it, I just, like, God damn, this guy is green. Like, has he done anything? Does this painting waste know what he's doing? Right? Like, I had to always wonder how tested he was. So coming across this little tidbit was really interesting to me.
Here he is, just another man coming into the situation, and he looks into this one mission that it turns out he was set up to win anyway by a woman who gets no recognition, and all of a sudden he's the boss.
Fucking preach, Chris, preach.
I will say this to Snake's defense. I believe I was speaking with Zach, about this because Zach has much more of a military history mind than I do.
Right.
And he has much more military knowledge than I do. We were talking about, at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3, where Snake is being pinned with, I believe it's the Distinguished Metal Cross.
Yeah.
I think that's what Zach said. The Distinguished Metal Cross is, hey, it's damn near on par with the Congressional Medal of Honor, but it can be presented and awarded privately. And in that scene, we do see all of Snake's achievements, all of his awards that, he has earned in the military on his chest, as he's being pinned. And from what I remember, Zach said, he does have quite a distinguished record. And the only war that I think that he could have gotten those awards in, or, where the rank that he was at that point was from that war. So I don't know if saying that Snake is green is the right thing. I think the right thing to say is Jesus Christ.
No, I like Jesus Cross. That's good.
Jesus Christ. The boss is just a motherfucker not to be reckoned with. I mean, she is just insanely talented, insanely deadly.
For sure.
Extremely capable.
I mean, this isn't to say that like Big Boss is a panty waste, right? Like he actually did serve. He did covert ops in Vietnam, and then he was in the Green Beret. But the fact that the boss can just handle him like a noodle, and here he is, this badass Green Beret guy. He's experienced enough. He should be able to hold his own.
Sure.
And he's still getting the shit kicked out of him. The boss is really this big dramatic tool that Kojima uses in a way that he just doesn't seem to recapture with other characters in the series. I can't think of another character that's as revered in the mythology as the boss.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
No, I agree with that.
She just fucking owns, guys. Goddamn. Okay, so that was a little bit of a sidetrack, but right, the central question here being, how did the boss and Snake really come together to form the CQC action that they end up founding together? Apparently the boss was a part of some operations under or during the Cold War in which nuclear weapons were tested, right? And when we talk about this game, we'll touch more on that. And therefore was exposed to radiation. And this is, I found a little bit interesting just because of, what she's already been through at this point and what we're going to find out about her later. All of the radiation made her infertile. So at this point, remember, she's already had her kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether she was aware of this fact or not. I have to assume that she would be, because...
Well, she had her child before nuclear weapons were developed.
Right.
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 So she had the kid in a pre-atomic world, and now she's radiated like Jack was. That's what kind of brings them together, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
So, and the only reason I bring this up is because I find it interesting that this timeline kind of works out the way it does because, one, she's lost her kid already. Two, she's been irradiated to the point of being infertile. And then she's meeting a 15-year-old Jack, or John, depending on which name you want to go with here. So, right, like Chris said, it's after she's been tested on with atomic weaponry. And the reason she takes to him is because he's also been kind of that puppet. Here, why don't we test on you, and you're going to be exposed to this radiation, and we'll just see how it goes, okay? So...
Sure. She kind of sees maybe a child that she lost in Jack.
Right.
In that regard.
Right.
And so then she decides to train him and then consequently dog walk him anytime she can.
It's a good way to put it.
Oh, for real. She's the alpha still.
And it's just so great. It's so, again, super frustrating as the player, but you just gotta admire that kind of oh, I'm gonna put you in your place, man.
Oh, yeah.
As a part of this work with SAS, she was sent on what were called snatch missions, where she was to capture and return important officers of, I guess, competing countries. And she was to capture them alive, which was the reason for close quarters combat. So, Cole, back when you were saying you kind of feel like she was developing it on her own and then tested it with Snake, I think you're exactly right with that based off of this. So it seems like CQC was kind of born of the need to capture somebody alive and still have them in a state to talk.
It's meant to, and we see this in the games, it's not meant to kill. I mean, you don't kill someone with CQC unless you obviously choke them to death. It's meant to incapacitate them, knock them on their ass, and then keep them out for long enough that they could be extracted from that area.
Right. And just for a second, you guys, can we talk about how hard it is to try and interrogate a guard and accidentally slit his throat with a knife? Please tell me I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I forgot this was like back when like they were utilizing that feature in the PlayStation 2 where you could like push a button, but then you could press down on it harder.
Right.
It was like that kind of tactile button press. And it's so sensitive on, I'm using an Xbox to play the game. And it's just like, I don't know, it's not the same feel.
Right. It's been one of the most frustrating things about playing that game for me. And I fuck it up every time, every playthrough. Good God. And then I see those extra bodies floating down the sorrowful river of death. And it's... anyway, we'll get there later. Okay, so back to the timeline. We have a moment in time called the Missile Gap, which, again, Chris, Cole, if you want to jump in and talk a little bit more about that, feel free to in a moment. Following the Missile Gap, the boss was sent by the U.S. president to sabotage Soviet operations because the Missile Gap was...
It was a bluff by the Soviet Union to the U.S. We were in the midst of an arms race with the Soviet Union with how many nuclear weapons we could amass as opposed to the other side in a show of force of, hey, fuck around and find out what could happen if we do decide to turn the keys and push the big red button.
Right.
And I assume, based on the timeline, Chris, keep me honest here, but I would assume the president at the time, if this is 1961, this is JFK, correct?
Yeah, he had just been elected. So some of this stuff would have been going on prior during the Eisenhower years. If Eisenhower was, I think like this is the problem with the Metal Gear timeline, because it says like Kennedy's the president and he's assassinated. And then like Johnson's the president in 3. And it talks about Nixon. So was Nixon president during like Peace Walker? Is that what happened?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
Because let's see, Kennedy was president in 61.
Yeah. And then the 70s was Nixon. And then Reagan would have been like Metal Gear Solid 5. And then it like changes on you. It's like George Sears was president. And
who?
And then they had another President Johnson in 2. So
yeah.
It seems like at this point it's still kind of the timeline of normal reality.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean,
that's the long way of getting back to the point of the Missile Gap.
Right. I mean, somewhat normal reality timeline.
Yeah, I just wanted to establish that like we're kind of coloring it, we're guessing in a way. Like, don't take this as law.
Right.
Yeah.
We're looking for the most plausible explanation here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am no authority on history or historical fiction, so just keep that in mind as I'm dictating these notes that I've copy pasted.
And
good.
So the main point being, the boss was sent by the president to sabotage Soviet operations. Right. This is where the clashing between the CIA and the boss really starts, because this is going to become a theme, as I've discovered. CIA and the bosses will, for the mission, are not going to mix well. And at this point, it's really just that the CIA is kind of trying to keep their hands clean totally of the boss's mission.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to ignore that it's happening. It's probably not a direct slight at this point, just that, it's the fucking CIA. They're trying to keep things under wraps. So,
Right.
They're being shady.
Like they do. So she sends out a sleeper agent who eventually ends up defecting because, again, CIA is fucky, and according to Kojima, the sleeper agent's pay was all but completely stolen by the CIA. And the boss eventually discovers this, and another tasty bit of information that the agent that she sent out found, being Sputnik 5, which was being launched by the Soviets. Is that correct? That sounds right?
That's correct, yep.
Was equipped with an ejection pod for human personnel to use for re-entry, which is going to come up later if you guys are paying attention to the lore of Metal Gear Solid 3.
Okay.
I thought that was important information to have handy. Jumping forward a little bit to about 1961, based off of that handy little piece of information she has found out, the boss, as we know from the video game, was the first American in space, which sparked her dream of uniting the world as one.
Eat that, Alan Shepard.
So I've also got this noted here that this is the first time that the boss meets Strangelove. And I find this important with my limited experience of Peace Walker because, again, the relationship that the boss cultivates with all these different people she encounters seems to have a very lasting effect. So when we eventually get to the Peace Walker season, I want to revisit this because I just find the relationship between those two people so very interesting.
For sure.
Very much so.
So on April 12, 1961, her capsule is re-entering the atmosphere from a mission that she's on for the Mercury project. When it's coming back into the atmosphere, capsule veers off course, crash lands. She's thrown and badly burned by quote-unquote cosmic radiation and the heat of re-entry, and somehow lives through it. Once again, put into a coma. And this coma happens to be convenient for the CIA, because since...
God. This is like fucking Days of Our Lives with all these comas.
Dude,
I know.
You're not
I
wrong.
know.
How many... We should have a coma count. I'm instituting a coma count for the entire series. Every time there's a coma, we have to take a drink or something. I don't know.
All right, I'm into it.
Yeah.
Fucking Dr. Drake Ramore over here.
No, maybe not, because then this would just like turn into a drunk cast or something, and we don't want to do that.
Absolutely not.
Certainly not.
But yeah, God, there's so many comas.
So yeah, once again, another coma. Since she's in this coma, the sneaky CIA finds this convenient little moment a great time to blame the boss for their botched mission that is widely known as the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, I don't understand this. So
I don't either. I fully don't either.
Were they just like the Soviets? They were like, listen, guys, the Bay of Pigs. We had this agreement. You said you wouldn't, and was the CIA just like, it wasn't us. It was
this one person.
It was this one person, the boss.
Yeah, that's exactly...
The whole thing was her.
That's exactly what this is, guys, because she wasn't even a part of this. From what I'm reading, she had no part in this Bay of Pigs invasion. And
she was in a coma.
Yeah,
she was
dude,
in a coma.
For real, this was their big fucking fuck up. And since she, is defenseless and in a fucking coma, once again, she can't do anything about it. They're, of course, going to blame her.
Right.
Why wouldn't they? So it's just convenient. And it's weird. I realize it's weird and convenient way for Kojima to splice all these fucking things together.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, the way that he's weaving this story so far makes sense. Because, this really sparks the whole disagreement that is kind of seen between not only the boss, but Big Boss and the CIA. You know, he's got his whole, as we go through the series, like, you know, why we don't need to fight for one nation, we just need to fight for the cause.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and all of this I'm noting as being particularly important because now this is Castro's opening to turn to the Soviet Union for protection against America, because now America has their little scapegoat in the boss.
Right.
Right.
Which kind of brings us to the virtuous mission. But Chris, this would probably be a good time for you to jump in there.
Yeah. So this whole like space flight scenario where the boss has her epiphany, is this like the birth of what we are just fucking not able to agree on for the rest of this series, and that is the will of the boss?
Maybe.
I certainly think it's a piece of it, yeah. If not what Major Zero and the Big Boss himself are interpreting as her will, I certainly think this is an important piece of it.
Sure.
I mean, are we going to come out of this knowing what the will of the boss was?
God, we can only hope, man, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'll jump in on that as well with the space thing, because April 12th, 1961, it's such a, like, Kojima doesn't really do, he does a lot of things just kind of, you know, offhanded. And then he does a lot of things very particular. And I think he does a lot of things very particular in this game, especially with like the backstory. I looked it up. April 12th, 1961 is when Yuri Gagarin was launched into space. That's on record for, like, you know, our world as the first human to be launched into space. So ostensibly they're just saying, oh, well, actually the US did beat the Russians to space in this timeline.
Well,
yeah, we just fucked it up and couldn't take credit for it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the important part, because I thought it was very pointed the way that it was written. The first American in space, because we all know that she wasn't the first human in space, even if we set aside the fact that we know this is fiction, right? We know that an American was not the first human in space.
The interesting thing is that in this world that both the Americans and the Soviets launched someone into space on the exact same day.
Right, and isn't that just so perfect for this whole story?
It's absolutely perfect.
That's like some Kojima shit right there. That just so happened on the same day.
Well, which is why I thought it was so important, and as fucking wild of a maze as this was to piece together between, you know, a few different articles and understand the timeline of this. This whole missile gap business and her sending out a sleeper agent to find out what's going on and all of that. I feel like that's really important because all of this is not necessarily centered around the space part, but it is helping to highlight, like, whoa, Soviet Union, United States, we're getting into some fucking shit right now. To put it, you know, in the most layperson terms that I can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like the wheels of the story are starting to pick up at this point.
For sure.
Because global politics are getting more heated.
Right. So all of this is a very long and drawn out way to say that.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that, like, I think from a storytelling perspective, Kojima has decided to use the momentum of events in history to drive his story.
Yeah, exactly.
Which relies pretty heavily on these events. Right.
And I'm really impressed with the way that he does it too, because I'm just over here relearning history.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I think that's why I liked Metal Gear Solid 3 so much, is because, I mean, like, I have a loose grip on this history and world history, just because it was instilled in me by my dad. So, like, that I can go back and, like, look at the times and the events that were happening, and it really does make the story feel more real. I think that's what good historical fiction is supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to get lost in this other time that maybe you did not experience yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So, did you hear that? Any parents who happen to be listening, let your kids play video games. They just might learn some history.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
So yeah, we were picking up with U.S. space flight, which seems to be what's really starting. This is where we're starting to get near the events of
Right.
the Virtuous mission.
Right. This is kind of starting to become the catalyst for it. And just one last big note I want to make on it really is bringing in kind of the emotional, vulnerable side and point of view that the boss is bringing to this. She is now at this point resented by the U.S. for some failed missions by not being able to successfully assassinate a suspected Nazi. She's now also blamed for a botched Bay of Pigs invasion. So nobody trusts her, right?
And she carries this huge chip on her shoulder, which is not her fault to bear.
Exactly.
All these events are really foisted upon her.
Right.
I mean,
and
her whole existence seems to have been just as a scapegoat.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, her father was assassinated just because he passed down information to her. She didn't ask for that. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
So, right. It's at this point that the Soviet sector of the philosophers have discovered her sleeper agent. And unfortunately, this discovery was made by the Sorrow, who didn't know that the agent was sent by the boss, but nonetheless was expected to carry out a retaliation. Meanwhile, the boss is now being expected to take care of the Sorrow because the U.S. is aware that the Sorrow is involved in this, right? So all of this is happening, plus the fact that the philosophers are now in possession of her child. So she's given an ultimatum. Either the Sorrow lives through this or you live through this, but one of you has to die, otherwise your child dies. So at this point, the boss meets up with the Sorrow. They talk about it. They decide that it should be the boss who lives, and ever dedicated to her mission, the boss has to be the one to eliminate the Sorrow, as we know from playing the game. She takes care of that,
just
right?
Heartbreaking.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely heartbreaking. You're having to kill the man you love, the father of your child. I mean, he really his name is very apropos. I mean, he's just this is one of the saddest points in the entire mythos of Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, for real.
Absolutely. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, and digging back into this, just it made it hit home even more. Because I don't know who else out there is like me, but when playing this game, it's hard to take all of this in and really take into account the weight of it all. You know what I mean? And
sure.
While also trying to take in and piece together the story. So while I was doing research for all of this, it hit me a lot harder. Like, damn, she really had to lose her child, be compromised by her country, and kill her child's father. Like, what? And she still survives through that and keeps remaining loyal to her mission. I can't even fathom it.
No, I don't think anyone really can. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely, it's two people making a massive sacrifice.
Right.
For ends that are very confusing to see.
For a complete asshole, mind you.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Their son.
Well, hold on. Wait, let's just calm down with that. I mean,
I really did not expect
easy there. Let's rein it back just a little bit. I mean,
anyway,
Chris bringing the levity back to it. I just realized we're going down.
You're not pretty good.
This super heavy emotional journey. So let's move through
Chris
this.
Chris seems to not fucking care.
Let's just
let's move along from that emotional pit.
Anyway, let's get back to where I swear we're almost done with this part. The next bit is that in 1962, Major Zero invites the boss to form the CIA unit known as Boss. which is crazy to
So
me.
Major
Hey.
Zero, does he work for the CIA, or is he just a guy who's like, I want to put a crack team together. We're going to drive around in a van, and some guy's going to wear a bunch of gold chains and have a mohawk.
God, I hope it was
and
that.
we're going to be a bunch of badasses.
Wow, I really hope it was that.
You know, I want to see some like fan art of the Cobra unit in the A-Team
as the
van.
A-Team.
Yes.
I want the Fury to be Mr. T. Just put like an afro mohawk like on a cosmonaut's
That
helmet.
makes the most sense. Actually, no. As
I
you
would
were
love-
saying that, I was picturing the Fear. I just realized and the only reason, this is going to sound so dumb, but I can picture him with a gold tooth really well.
Mm-hmm.
I
yeah.
can see that. I could definitely see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
Yeah, so Major Zero invites the boss to form the CIA unit.
right.
Fox.
And then
Right.
this is pretty much
So-
where we get to the Virtuous mission.
So to be clear, the members of the Fox unit are Major Zero, Paramedic, Signet, the boss,
Mhm.
I guess.
To a certain
Mhm.
extent.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. She seems a little on the fence about
A
it.
little shaky. I don't know about it.
Yeah, and I guess Jack.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have our team. We have our crack team is assembled. And then the Cuban Missile Crisis happens.
Which, yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about this at the beginning of the game, but to sum it up, the U.S. discovered that Russian ships were exporting missiles to Cuba, and, you know, obviously it's like, whoa, that's, you know, that doesn't...
Hey, maybe let's not blow each other
yeah,
up.
that's...
That'd be a really cool thing. Khrushchev, you cool
Maybe
with
not.
that? And Khrushchev was like,
Yeah.
yes, I am cool with this. I do not want to blow each other up.
Yeah. Which we later learn that they made this deal, but that's not the real deal. The real deal was for a Russian scientist.
Hey, I mean, like, listen, if you give me Sokolov, maybe I pretend that all of this goes under table. Yes? Okay, good. Thank you. I like your hair.
Oh, so
Yeah.
uncanny, Cole. Oh my god.
I do a great Khrushchev impersonation. I'll be at your local comedy club. Yes, your local comedy club.
Listen
Doing
here,
impressions.
Khrushchev. I want to talk to you, Khrushchev.
Yes, Mr.
About
President.
these
what do you want to
missiles
talk about?
of
Oh, the
yours?
missiles. Yes.
In Cuba,
Yes, with my friend Castro. Yes.
Yes.
He's good man.
Oh,
Great
you-
cigars. Great cigars.
you're going to get your missiles out of Cuba.
Okay,
That's
so
what you're going to do.
I hear your point. I do hear
Yeah.
your point, Mr. President. And
Okay.
I like to make deals if that is okay with you. Yes.
All right.
So you have one of my scientists. He's a big prize scientist. I need him back in my country. He jumped over the curtain, as it were. I don't know how that had happened. Maybe
What?
you know.
Hold on a second. What's that, Johnson? Oh, we'll just go back and get him later. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll give you your scientist back. You can have the scientist
Okay.
back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would appreciate
We'll
if
just,
you give back Sokolov. He is a very important
and,
friend to me, and nothing bad will happen to him. Yes.
Yeah. How's the Dramucci swap this time of year?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's absolutely
lovely.
beautiful.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
beautiful
We'll be
landscape.
seeing you there soon then.
Okay,
All right.
okay, yes. I will have your favorite crew officers. They will be there. It will be a great show. Okay, say hello to the missus for me. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Which one, Maryland or?
Oh my god. Oh, you guys.
And, okay.
And-
I didn't want that
Okay.
to stop.
How did we get that far
I
into that?
could-
bit?
Tune into the PC for more of me and Chris doing impersonations of world
Fucking
leaders.
A. I just want you guys to know that I restrained myself from jumping in there with a good old Donnie boy. I was so I know that would have been chronologically very inaccurate, but it sounded like a good idea at the time.
Why not?
I'm so glad I didn't though, because that was just a treat to hear.
this timeline's already messed up enough.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
shit.
But as we said, Sokolov is eventually returned to the Soviet Union. And if, by that beautiful reenactment, that is what does begin the virtuous mission.
Yeah.
And
Do you know why
of
it's called
course-
the Virtuous Mission?
Why is it called the
Chris,
Virtuous
talk about
Mission?
This one.
Please tell me, Chris. Why is it called the Virtuous Mission?
The Snake. They're inserting our man Snake here into the Virgin Cliffs.
Please go on.
Yeah. And they do this twice. So
Oh yes.
Yeah. But it's virtuous.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I suspect we'll talk about this again when we start talking about Metal Gear Solid 3, but I fucking busted up because I never noticed this line. Snake is listening to Major Zero's just kind of debriefing about this, and he goes, "The virtuous mission, huh? Well named."
Yeah,
it was creepy, and that was my excellent Snake impression.
That is where the virtuous mission does begin, and if you want to hear more about that, we will be talking about that on the next episode. We don't want to spoil too much for you. We got to give you a little tasty treat to come back for.
Oh yeah. Next episode is totally dedicated to Virtuous Mission.
Absolutely. Let's hop over onto the next section here. Let's talk about the legacy of the Joy. First and foremost, she wants Jack / John, however you want to. I'm going to keep calling him Jack. I like Jack. It's better.
Too.
She wanted Jack to understand her tragic story and avoid going down the same road. That's pretty maternal, honestly. If that isn't a just key piece of parenting, I don't know what is.
So sweet.
That's true, yeah.
I don't know what any bit of parenting is. I'm not a parent personally.
I mean, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that Jack is like, the sad part of it is that he doesn't.
I know.
And that's the frustrating part.
Like a fucking stubborn child.
Exactly. Yeah.
The will of the boss really, I think, might have been just peace for him to avoid being vilified by history like she has.
And yet both of her quote unquote sons ended up being vilified, which is just tragic. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah, for sure.
While we're talking about the will of her boss, there are multiple people who do take what she has said and interpret it very differently.
It's the will of the boss, Snake.
Major Zero, Major Tom, and the Virtuous Mission, shouts out to David Bowie, does form the Patriots. This is where we're done with the philosophers, almost, really.
Yeah.
And Zero forms the Patriots as an interpretation. Like, we need to fully control the world. You know, we need to control war, and these governments can't make these big decisions on their own. They need guidance.
It's almost like the Patriots were like, yeah, the philosophers are like just fucking shit up. So we'll reform the system and make the people in charge better.
Right.
Rather than like the idea that society should be a little bit more free. We'll still like closely monitor and like guide it according to
that unseen hand just kind of pushing the back along society in one direction.
Just like different or I guess different alignment or whatever.
Sure.
And the whole, you know what kind of marks me as strange here is that like, here's this guy, Major Zero, who like has one interaction with the boss, right?
That we can see.
Yeah. They don't seem...
I assume that since he like got her to form Fox, that they were close in some capacity.
He must have been obsessed. You think he was like a scorned lover or something?
God, I've had to wonder that myself, because it does seem to come out of nowhere at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, right?
Yeah, it does seem to come out of nowhere, unless he's been carrying a chip on his shoulder, but like, come on, you know?
Maybe.
What's your take on it?
I mean, it would be very on brand for Kojima, honestly.
Yeah, I guess I always chalked it up to Major Zero and Big Boss just butting heads. I always kind of felt like he wasn't really, Major Zero that is, wasn't really as passionate about making sure that the boss's will was interpreted correctly as he was about being the major. You know what I mean? And being the one to call the shot. But that's just, I mean, I have nothing to found that on. It's just kind of a feeling that I had about it.
Absolutely. I've thought also that Major Zero maybe was having some, maybe with his interpretation, maybe it was because he worked in the SAS for so long. I assume that he probably did some kind of work with the SAS, during Korea and Vietnam, and maybe even further back, because he is an older man in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Right.
Maybe he, Great Britain did suffer a lot during, World War I and World War II, and he's seeing the world through maybe that old lens of British imperialism. And when I say British imperialism, I mean to say it takes a strong leader to really actually just get across a message or to bring about a true peace. I think the will of the boss in every interpretation to an extent at the end is peace. Yeah, that's my interpretation, possibly from at least Zero's side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. I think it's a reasonable, or maybe not reasonable, but logical. It's logical. I don't think it's reasonable.
I will say I don't think anyone in the series was reasonable.
Yeah, that's a damn true statement for sure. So we have the Patriots, and then we have MSF, right?
Right.
Because Big Boss is like, no, you don't understand. She was my mom.
It's not a phase, Dad.
It's like, you understand that this is the real will of the boss.
Right.
Which is Militaire Sans Frontières.
That's it.
Did I butcher that?
I think you got it.
Oh, thank you.
Militaire Sans Frontières.
Sounded smooth as fuck.
Hey.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so he's like, the Patriots are a misinterpretation of the boss's will. And Militaire Sans Frontières is like, what is this organization of like soldiers without borders?
Mm-hmm. It's a nation state of soldiers where they fight for their own causes or their own.
They fight for money. They're mercenaries, right?
Yeah, but the idealistic interpretation behind it being they fight because they belong to no man. They fight because they want to fight, and soldiers have to be there and for society to exist. And there will always be soldiers, but they should fight because they want to fight.
Right. I always kind of interpreted this part as placing key importance on the without borders part. Like, Snake just really kind of took the boss's words literally when she said, your enemy today might be your ally tomorrow, or vice versa. You know what I mean? So yes. I think that's where the Snake was really like, whoa, Major Zero, what the fuck? You think the enemy is... Well, I guess, who is the enemy in the Patriots? The government?
I think the enemy is, for the Patriots, anyone who isn't on board with the Patriots.
Sure, fair.
The Patriots can draw a direct line straight to the philosophers. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
they're a powerful cabal that just use money and influence and militaries and governments to advance themselves.
Right.
They didn't like the previous cabal.
Right.
They were like, these guys got it wrong and they're bad people, but we're good people.
Well, we're good. We know what's good for the world. So we'll do the
same thing that they did.
Right.
And fuck it up in the same way.
Exactly.
But just with different intentions.
Exactly. But yeah, I think you're exactly right on that, Tori. I think that it's the sans frontières that is most important to Big Boss's interpretation. And we see a lot of that in Metal Gear Solid 5. I mean, he's just snagging Soviets left and right to come join his little island paradise out in the Seychelles. Yeah, I think we should maybe talk about now the boss and her boys. Right?
Boss and her boys.
Yeah.
We got two boys. We got two gun-toting animal named boys eventually. We've got a Damska, my boy.
Mm-hmm. That's your boy?
That's my boy. Fuck you, Chris.
Oh, what?
You were talking shit about my boy earlier.
Well, he's just a mixer, okay?
Easy. Adamska, Shalashaska
Sure.
to some, Ocelot to others, Major Ocelot to you.
Nice.
Okay.
And eventually Revolver Ocelot, and then finally, well, not finally, then Liquid Ocelot, and then finally Ocelot.
Aww.
Or Adam.
Oh, yeah. But then you have, her real son, her chosen son.
Okay.
Like the one she actually cared about and gave advice to.
You don't think she cared about the son that was ripped from
Fighting
her
words.
by the philosophers?
Apparently not. I mean, she doesn't ever talk about him.
Here we have the
Spends her all the time with
Major
Snake.
Zero
apparently.
versus Big Boss duel going down right in this discussion. I love it.
AKA Jack, AKA Ishmael, AKA the legendary soldier, the man who sold the world, Big Boss.
Okay, let's just bury the hatchet here.
Okay.
She did not have the time to develop anything for Ocelot. Besides I would assume the motherly love that entails birthing an actual child. She did not know this child. All she knew is that she had a child who was basically being held captive by the philosophers. And then she did everything that she could to protect that child, even though she did not know that child.
That's fair. She had no idea that Adam was her child, probably.
And let's be real, she didn't have really any assurances that Adam was even alive.
Yeah. Which is, kind of funny that his name is Adam, because Adam is what, son of God?
Yeah.
And in here, Big Boss the Boss. I get them all mixed up. The Boss, Big Boss.
A lot of bosses.
The Boss. There's so many bosses in this game. We're going to talk about them all.
Every single one of them.
Metal Gear Mondays.
Revengeance.
Okay, so Adam is the son of this godlike figure in this mythology.
Right.
Who's passing down her legacy to a chosen son. And then you have this rivalry between the two sons. It's kind of like Norse, Loki
it is. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a Loki and Thor situation going on.
Hell yeah. Oh, we could get into that. And this is so delicious, too, to watch play out, because you can see them have this. Again, not to get too much into what we're going to be talking about in a couple weeks, but to watch them have this love-hate relationship with each other, because you can see them clearly admire each other, but they're also very much competing. You
know what we find out once again? Spoiler. I'm done saying spoiler alert. Alessio, I get it. I get why you got tired of saying it. These games are old, so if you have not played any of them, highly recommend it. But once again, we are going to spoil some things in these deep dive discussions. They're on the same side.
Exactly.
They were always on the same side, throughout Metal Gear Solid 3. We've got these, gunfights with Ocelot, and, we have the first, big interaction with him at the end of the Virtuous mission, and they are on the same side. Ocelot was Adam, the code name Adam. He was the special sleeper agent sent in. And then, we see their relationship more so in, 5, where Ocelot is a pivotal figure with MSF.
Mm-hmm.
But they are always kind of vying with each other for some kind of for some level of respect with each other.
So this is where I wanted to jump back to that. Does Adam know? Does Ocelot know his relationship with the boss? Because in some circumstances that you see during the game, it seems very much so that he does, but does he?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
and some listener if I'm missing something, please like write in, tweet me something, let me know where I'm having I'm drawing a blank here, but I don't recall a moment where he reflects upon his mother.
I mean, yeah, it's never outwardly stated, but I also wouldn't be surprised to know that. I mean, he's kind of a scoundrel, sneaky little scoundrel, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised to know that he did have a little bit of that information up his sleeve. And if that wasn't part of the reason why he made a promise to the boss not to fucking murk on Snake.
I bet, like, the philosophers probably used that information against him at some point if he was working for them, too.
Sure, that's a good point.
And I think that, Ocelot was definitely like, maybe Snake didn't know that Ocelot was the boss's son, like real son,
Sure.
but Ocelot did know, and it kind of like seethed him all the more.
Sure.
That here's this guy who's like just trancing around the world, doing whatever he wants in the name of this woman, claiming to be her son. And like, here he is. And he's like the scapegoat, just like his mom.
Right, because I mean, the boss makes no bones about belittling Snake in front of her unit. You know what I mean? Like, you think you're some prodigy of mine. You can't even let go. You still have that bandana. Like, just fucking left and right. And I wonder, if Ocelot is privy to any of this information, that would be pretty interesting for him to witness, I would think.
I think we see his development a little bit further in the series. But Ocelot holds a deep, 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 deep hatred for the Patriots.
Right.
Yeah.
He holds a deep resentment for the Patriots. He holds a deep resentment. I think it would be safe to assume that he probably hold a deep resentment for the philosophers as well.
Yeah.
I think that's true. He had this family had a personal vendetta against these organizations.
Right.
Yes.
And maybe his friendship with the big boss was even this enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
I can totally see that. I think that's probably the most accurate way of getting after their friendship is that he sees some kind of unlikely ally in Snake.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then subsequently in Snake's clones.
Right. Oh man, that'll be something we have to revisit as we make our way through this, because I personally could talk about this / listen to you guys talk about this forever.
Well, that's why we brought you on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's keep it pushing to this last little bit, talking about the mother of Special Forces. This is more so, just kind of behind the scenes stuff about the woman, the myth, the legend. According to Kojima, apparently the boss's motherly character was meant to emphasize the maternity theme he was aiming for, and I can fully see that.
Oh, for sure.
She punishes Jack for hubris left and right.
Yeah, and not just him either. Ocelot too. She fully just slaps him for being insolent, and it's amazing.
I mean, she gets after. I mean, the way, now playing this game for the upteenth time, seeing him, draw the gun on her, that's, obviously, if I did a modicum of that to my mother, love you, Mom, I'm getting slapped around.
At least, man.
Yeah.
I'm immediately getting dressed down for whatever. But that's what she is doing in this moment. It's not so much I'm doing this. I felt like it was not so much I'm doing this to sell the illusion, but I'm going to dress you down and make you understand where I am.
Yeah.
In the
and
hierarchy.
There's no hesitation either. She's just like, boy, what the fuck did you just do? Slap, slap.
Exactly. It's quick. It's quick and effective. In commentary by Kojima for Metal Gear Solid 3, he revealed that the boss's appearance was based on English actress Charlotte Rampling. And Jesus Christ, is that accurate? If you are on your phone right now, keep listening. I'll be here. We'll all be here.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Look up Charlotte Rampling. It is wild how, even in her old age, I looked this up before we started recording, they look very similar to each other.
They did a great job modeling the boss after her. I have these two particular pictures pulled up where they're kind of posing in the same way, and it's just, it's the digitization of this picture that I'm seeing in the game. It's crazy.
And Chris, you said that she is going to be in she's going to be in the new Dune remake, right?
Yes, she's playing the Reverend Mother.
So, yeah, there's your one David Lynch throwback for this episode.
We'll make a loose connection to Twin Peaks in every episode.
somehow.
Gotta meet that quota, right, boys?
We're running the ship. You're getting a little bit of Twin Peaks in here somewhere. It's just it's literally in us. We can't not do it.
Damn straight.
Tori, you want to take this next little point that you got down here?
Sure. Yeah. It'll give me another chance to do my favorite impersonation ever.
I wanted to.
So, again, per Kojima commentary, indicates that the following line was meant to be a reference to herself and an early hint at the true nature of her defection to Soviet Union. What is this fairy disguise? It's gonna rub off on you, and then you'll lose sight of who you really are. So there it is.
Yeah.
So, and I liked this one enough to write it down because I never thought of it that way. This was a nice surprise for me to come across. Because when you think about it, she really is talking to both Snake as she pulls off his fairy disguise, looking at you, Raiden. And she is reflecting on her own, I guess, inclination not to lose sight of who she really is, even though she appears to have abandoned Jack and what she really fights for. That's kind of like a little nod to her to keep true to the mission and keep true to who she has been fighting for all along, which is herself, I guess, and Jack in a loose sense.
I never thought of this line that way until you brought it up. I mean, that's on me. I mean, I just go to the big quotes from these games, but that's one that I never really, I never noticed that line, honestly.
Right? It's her being a mom again.
It's poignant.
Yeah, it's just so once again, her trying to ensure that Snake doesn't fuck up the same way. I guess not fuck up, but that's extremely crass of me to say that.
To not go down the same path that she did.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. She just doesn't want to see Snake abused and used like a tool of the state. Like
her actual son currently is.
Like a scapegoat. And both Ocelot and Snake end up being a scapegoat of a lot of things.
Yeah.
For sure.
Moving on here, Kojima actually said that Snake was originally meant to be thrown the boss's bandana after he was thrown off the bridge during the Virtuous mission. No, that scene would not have worked at all if that had happened. It
reminds me of the Twin Snakes cut of whatever fucking cutscene that is when Solid Snake is literally jumping and what does he do? A little jump off of the
He does
missile,
like a flip,
jump
right?
off the missile. Like, nah,
Yeah.
man, you can't say that that's perfectly set up that way and it just worked out.
No, it's way it's too convenient. It's too on the nose. The thing that I liked about that scene is there's a thing in film that I've seen where like good directors will write action, and when I mean action, I mean like violence, like violence in cinema as sloppy. Like having very highly choreographed fight scenes is really cool and it's really appealing to the eye, but it is not what a fight actually is. Fights are dirty. They are, they're not clean. They're messy. A real fight is a knockout, drag out, and things happen in that melee. Just having these perfect timing things just don't happen, and that's what I kind of liked with this scene, which was it was very highly choreographed, but then you take into effect that these are two extremely like highly trained soldiers going after each other, and in a kind of fleeting moment he's going to grab her and he grabs the bandana instead. That's perfect. That's the perfect level. That's the perfect balance to me.
I like that part so much too, and must be why I included this on the extra notes here, because it makes sense to me. It makes sense that while in a close quarters combat duke with the boss, he would try for a move that has him grabbing at her head and maybe trying to throw her down, but inevitably he realizes once again she's bested him. And there's no chance of that, so may as well grab the only thing he can really get his hand on.
Yeah, and I don't know. I like that the bandana is this also kind of tongue-in-cheek joke,
right?
Because it's a reference to the item where you get like unlimited ammo, right?
Sure.
And even on I was just looking at my desk, and even on the snake amiibo. I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah.
But it's just like this ridiculously long bandana. And I don't know, these little, it's part of the iconography of Metal Gear Solid, the bandana. And it's like passing your mantle from the mentor to the mentee. So while she was also dressing him down, she was also making a reference of this, oh, you hold on to that because I passed my mantle down to you or whatever. But everything I was stupid before, and now I'm defecting, so my opinions are changing. So I think it was her kind of a coding message to Snake that this isn't what you seem. Even in the early parts of Virtuous Mission, which we'll get into later, you go into these conversations and she's trying to send him a message,
Yeah.
I also I have to wonder how much of that line of hers too, where she's goading him about wearing the bandana, is kind of a dig at the player too. Oh, you guys wanted more Solid Snake. You're clinging so tightly to that bandana, that thing that identifies you to Solid Snake. Well, here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's your bandana. And then 300 you off the branch. Was this before 300?
Oh yeah. Well, maybe not the graphic novel, but before the movie for sure.
Yeah.
That movie came out when I was in high school, so.
Yeah, you were in high school in a different time than I was. Yeah. So that makes sense. Okay. I was about to be whoa, hold on a minute.
Badass moment though, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This is just I can't wait to dive into the series and also talk more about the relationship here, because so much of it is told in this story really well in this game.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think this game has the best story moments for the series.
Super agreed.
Honestly. And luckily, this last little bit was not included in that story, where Kojima indicated that in the final battle with the boss, that she originally would have had her shooting goggles to, quote, hide her tears.
What
No,
the fuck?
absolutely not.
Ouch. It hurts.
No. I'm so glad that did not happen.
For someone who claims to like movies a lot, they really do make some ham-fisted decisions
for sure.
sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's like that's.
And I'm glad that he made the final call not to do that.
Yes, like you're gonna dehumanize an emotion here. One of the most like when I get to that point in this game, I will cry. I know it's coming.
Sure.
It's probably one of the most iconic moments in video games
It
ever.
still gives me goosebumps every fucking time. And I just want to say one more thing about this, and the reason I'm glad he didn't go with this, because again, her fate is to be in a later game is to be an AI pod. Like, when you're talking about dehumanizing her, like, don't do it so early. This is her time to shine, damn it. We already have to deal with her as artificial intelligence. Let's not go there just yet.
Yeah.
Let's have, and that scene was just so, like, when you see that big teardrop rolling down her eye, it's a fucking gut punch, and it works.
Oh, it super is.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kojima making you do the one thing you don't want to do at the very end. We'll get to that.
Asshole.
But that, I believe, just about does it for our deep dive on the Mother of the Special Forces, the Joy, the OG, the boss. So thank you for sticking around and listening to all of this. And we really hope that you continue to listen to our continued coverage. Like we said at the top, we're starting from the ground. We're going chronological order all the way through.
From the ground zero?
Hey.
Well, not from the ground zero, because I mean that'll come up though. So you know,
hey? We're headed that direction.
We are headed in that direction. If you would like to follow us, please give us a subscribe and a rating on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. MetalGearMondays.com is the website that has all of our socials, that has our Facebook, our Twitter. Make sure to give us a follow on both of those. We are going to start posting our episodes back to YouTube. So if that is where you're hearing us, hey, we're back. And if you're not, just stay with where you're at. We're pumping out episodes there. Patreon.com/MetalGearMondays. Once again, that is the Patreon. We are revamping all of our tiers to hopefully give you guys some more stuff. At just $1 a month, we'll get you into our Discord to hang out with all of us. We're in there. We're chatting. We're doing a lot of cool stuff there. Chris, where can they find you on the internet?
You can't. Sorry.
Damn it. I knew it. We're starting this new series, and you're just completely dropping off the internet.
Catch them here and nowhere else.
Dear social media accounts, dear Snake. You can find me on most social media platforms at Chris Hampton II. Also hit me up on LinkedIn.
Obviously.
I'll throw you some references.
Great.
You guys can give me references based on my awful podcasting skills.
Chris is going to be writing one of those really weird blog posts on LinkedIn that a lot of CEOs do to really, quote unquote, motivate their employees.
Yeah. The ones that are like 3 sentences spaced out, so you have to click the see more.
Yep.
And then it's just a wall of text, but you've already committed, so you're reading it, and they gotcha.
Chris Hampton's 5 simple steps to success.
If you follow these 5 simple steps, you'll make $1 million.
All you gotta do is
Step 1, click to see more. ...
Done. Easy.
Tori, where can all these good people find you on the internet?
You can catch me on, Twitter, on Instagram, PSN, Steam, all under some variation of Young Neil. That's YNGNEIL. And I'll underwhelm you with some posts about my animals or some other shit.
Awesome. I would also like to throw out here, I forgot at the top, the MGM store is still going, so bit.ly/MGM store. We've got all those designs that we had in the past season and all the seasons before. They're all still up there, so hop in there, check some of those out. And you can find me on the internet on Instagram at Subterranean Homesick Brews, on Twitter at I am Cole Duncan, and on PSN as I am Cole Duncan. I know that I have been slacking on that. I finally got my my PlayStation back up and loaded. I got my Vita, so I accepted a couple friend requests the other day. So if you are wanting to hang out, come check that out. I'm also announcing that, occasionally I do stream. That's also at Cole Duncan on Twitch. And we will be doing a little bit of streaming coming soon. We're going to be getting our own Metal Gear Mondays Twitch account. So
hell yeah.
Be on the lookout for that.
Hell yeah.
Guys, This has been great. It's a new series.
It is. New faces.
Some old faces.
But mostly voices.
Something new, something blue, something borrowed. I don't know what the wedding thing is.
Something blue.
It's I know there's something blue in there. I don't know why.
You had like 2/3 of it, or what?
It's like something
of it?
something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue.
Yeah,
right?
you were pretty much
it?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. So we need. I'm gonna borrow something.
Blue.
Okay.
So we have to end this, right? We've done It's Just a Box, and we can't do that anymore.
No.
I feel like that would be. I feel like that would undermine all the work that our predecessors did. We can't do. I feel like we have a connection or something because no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
But going forward into this new season, I'm feeling energized. I'm hyped up. So you know what I say? You know what I say we do?
What should we do, Cole?
I think we just let it rip, Jack.
Let her rip, Jack.
Let it rip, Jack.
Does that work? This works. I hope it works. God, I hope it works.
Well, it's too late. It's been ripped.
We'll make it work.
Oh,